it focuses on injury, doesn't it? So I had to shift my verbiage on that into a positive affirmation, okay? And I needed a visual image to go with it, to match it. So now my words are, as the person who enjoys radiant health, I now run 3 miles a day freely and light on my feet. Isn't that much better? Okay. In addition to saying the words, I see myself as the woman who right now is a runner. And I ask myself, what does she do? Well, she gets up in the morning and she eats some fruit and she ties her shoes and she goes outside and warms up a little by walking, and then she does a few stretches, and then she runs. She runs and she allows her limbs to move freely the way they want to, not the way a coach told her she should land on her heel first and then roll up on the toe and keep her back straight and the arms up here. She just runs. Okay? And what about you? Describe your idea of radiant health and allow it to visually take form in your mind. See yourself as the woman or the man who right now is healthy. What does she do? What does he do? How does she conduct herself physically? How does he move in the world? Is he breathing freely? Is she hiking Mission Peak as we speak? Maybe she is. And then this. Whose opinion is this person rising above to live the dream of health? Well, you know, you're a little old to be starting that. With your bad back, you shouldn't lift that child. If you could only lose a little weight, you could go do that marathon. That's resistance. And we have enough of our own resistance to deal with than to listen to that comes from others, okay? What do we do when this resistance does crop up? That's why it's so important to have the image. Our visual image grounds us in the reality of our potential. We create an impression of radiant health in our minds, and then we increase our amplitude so that our energy resonates with the mental picture. And our soul is poised, which is what Dr. Holmes wants for us, for our soul to be poised in perfect spiritual realization. Now, you've got a handout in your program this morning. I encourage you to take it home and use it. Health is the first question, or the first piece to fill out as an affirmation. And start using it now so that by the time you sit down for Thanksgiving dinner, you have something to be grateful for. Think about it right now. What real, substantive gratitude statement do you want to make about your perfect health on Thursday? Go ahead and start now. Let's move on to love. We're taught that love is the creative power of the universe, that it gives rise to everything, and that it's generative. It multiplies itself. That's its nature. Okay, that's a great idea. It's a beautiful sentiment. Can love be expressed in the company of others? Yes. Can it be expressed in the absence of others? Of course it can, because love is our essence. So wherever we are, love is. But if infinite intelligence had intended us to experience love only in isolation, it would only need to create one human being at a time. Now, life would probably be easier, wouldn't it? And it would get very lonely. So we have 7 billion people on the planet because it is our nature to give love and share love and spread love around, to be loved, to give and receive love all the time. I love this quote from Emmett Fox, who writes, "If you could only love enough, you could be the most powerful person in the world." If you could only love enough, you could be the most powerful person in the world. So how do we love more? How do we attract and sustain more loving relationships. And I don't just mean as a spouse or significant other. I mean everyone, our friends, our family members, our coworkers. These are love relationships, whether they feel loving or not. Make no mistake about it. They are love relationships because we're in them. So to increase that, we have to increase our love amplitude, don't we? Okay, close your eyes again. And imagine for a moment what it would be like to celebrate more love in your life. Vividly picture yourself doing what you would do in a state of perfect love. Where would you be right now? Who would you be with? Would you be holding someone's hand? Or preparing a meal for a group of people you adore? Or rocking a baby to sleep? What would it look like? As you open your eyes, keep that feeling very present for yourself. Like most of us, I have a lot of people in my life who love me and whom I love. And those relationships are not always easy. One in particular, with my sister having moved to the other side of the country, one of my challenges has been really missing my nieces. And I looked at an affirmation that I sort of used in the quiet of my mind, and it went something like, all my relationships are free from discord, meaning if my sister and I can put our differences aside, I can go visit. That's not a good affirmation, is it? It's not a good affirmation at all. Again, I needed to rephrase it along positive lines and add a visual image to go with it. So now the words are, as the person who enjoys loving relationships, I now spend a week in Atlanta with my nieces. And the mental picture that goes with this is that I see myself as the woman who right now abides in the presence of love, as the presence of love. What does she do? She smiles at strangers, and she calls her friends back. And sometimes she even calls them first. It's a big step. She's patient with others when they appear to be difficult or challenging. She looks for the good in everybody. That's what she does. She gives love freely even when others tell her she should take a different approach. Oh, you should write that person off. If they did that to me, I'd never speak to them again. Well, it's tempting. Okay. So describe your idea of loving relationships and allow it to visually take form in your mind. See yourself as the woman or man who right now is loving and loved. Okay. What does he do? What does she do? What does that person do? Who does he spend time with? How does she interact with her family? Is he surrounded by friends? Does she have a spouse or significant other? And whose advice is this person setting aside to live the dream of love the way he or she wants to? And not listening to what other people say. You shouldn't marry her. Or if you divorce him, you'll never get another husband. Or you really need to practice tough love with those horrible children of yours. No, we don't listen to what other people say. What do we do when we're met with resistance, whether it's outer or inner resistance? Again, having that visual image anchors us in the presence of love. So we create an impression of loving relationships in our mind, and then we increase our amplitude so that the energy resonates with the mental picture. This is on your handout too. It's the second item. I really, really encourage you to use it. Because I have a question for you, which is, by the time you sit down for Thanksgiving dinner, what true and meaningful gratitude statement do you want to be able to make about the love in your life? You know that now. Some part of you knows that now. You can experience it now. You can have it now. Let's move on to wealth. I don't deliberately save that one for last. But it seems to be a big one, and maybe particularly this time of year. Okay? We've established we live in an abundant universe, that the vast warehouses of the divine are always open to us. It's our birthright to partake of that good and to partake of it fully. How do we do that in this economy? How many of you are sick and tired of hearing about the economy? Yeah, it's old, isn't it? How many of you remember the fuel crisis of the 1970s? How many of you have spent the last 40 years thinking about it every single day? Not one person. I was too young to drive, but I vividly remember the stress and people lining up at gas stations. We've forgotten all about that until somebody brings it up. But it's the same economy. There's only ever been one economy. There only will ever be one economy. And it shifts and changes on the surface, but behind that, there's only God. There's only abundance. The economy we have now is the economy the earliest humans had. Now, our material culture might look a little different. I mean, everything's made of plastic now, isn't it? So 10,000 years from now, when archaeologists are digging up our artifacts, there's going to be all this plastic. Does it have a half-life? How do you carbon date plastic? But my point is that at some point, the collective economic struggle of today will be a memory. Why not just release it now?